On Story is brought to you in part by the Alice Clayburgh Reynolds Foundation, a Texas family providing innovative funding since 1979. On Story, presented by Austin Film Festival, a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers and filmmakers. In this episode, Paula Pell traces her unique journey from theme park performer to writer for TV's iconic comedy show.
There's some people that are not as much performers, that are just writers. And then there are people that are performers that also write their material. So I just happen to be one of those people that got in that little niche there. I was an actor when I was young. I was a total ham bone, and ever since I was very young, and I was in theater. And so I always did theater growing up, musical theater and plays and different things. And I always completely loved making people laugh ever since I was very, very tiny. And it was just always something I loved. So I moved to Florida in the middle of my sophomore year to Orlando. And it was like a culture shock from a little Catholic school in Illinois to this giant public school. And it was a culture shock, and I was miserable for a year. And then I ended up loving it. And so I was a Florida girl all through the rest of high school. It was really fun. And after high school, I went to a community college for 2 years, which happened to have this amazing theater program. So I was like, I'm going to be a theater major for sure. I did a lot of theater there. I ended up being an actor, and I moved back to Orlando after college. You know, I toured some shows, different things. I came back to Orlando. I did like the sort of third coast, like, because at that time Orlando was kind of trying to be the third coast in terms of acting, where, like, you know, there were a lot of national commercials and different things. I got beat up on America's Most Wanted, you know, those kind of like reenactment type things, you know. So I did all that, and I got a great job at the theme parks at Disney World, and I performed there for 3 or 4 years. I sang, I did comedy at this really great club there at the nighttime at Pleasure Island at the Adventurers Club. And this group of improv people in Orlando did a show every week, a number of shows, and they asked me to be in their night of sketch comedy. And they were like, just write a character and come out and do it. So I kept doing that here and there. And then they did a sketch comedy pilot called Chucklehead. And so I ended up being in it, just doing these characters. You know, I had written a lot of stuff for myself, but I did not think of myself as a writer. I had written pretty much my whole life. I wrote short stories, different things in school. I loved writing, but if anyone said, are you a writer? Do you write? No, I absolutely don't write. So I got this call, and my agent, at the time, my local agent there, which was, you know, probably called Superstars Talent, Inc. Shooting star with 5 R's. And she said, are you sitting down? And I said, yes. And she said, Saturday Night Live saw this tape, and Lorne Michaels wants to meet you. And I was like, what the? I mean, I seriously have grown up obsessed with SNL. I watched the very first episode. I had a big Panasonic tape recorder. I used to audio tape because I'm old, and we did not have machines that you could watch it again. So I would audio tape the whole thing and then listen to it in my bed with my headphones on. And I was obsessed with it. I used to perform at my high school, Rosanna and do all these different, you know, sketches and stuff. And I was like, well, is it an audition? And they were like, no, it's not an audition. I'm like, is it an orgy, an invitation to an orgy? I don't know how those work. And they said, no, they just want to talk to you. And so I flew up there. I had the craziest, ugliest outfit I can even express to you. It was like the color of a newborn baby's. It was like dark brown mustard. I went in, he was 3 hours late. Had relentless diarrhea, horrible fear. And I just sat down with him, and it was 95. It was when they had fired everyone that year. It was like, there were maybe 3 people left. And he said, the show is a phoenix, and it has risen many times. And this is another one of those times that we hope it rises. He said, we're looking for one more writer, and a female writer. And my whole body, almost like cartoon cracked and crumpled, because I thought, I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer. And I didn't know how the place worked. All I remember was that there were a lot of Harvard guys. And all I could picture was that I'm going to be sitting at a table in my dream place with, 10 dudes from Harvard that are super crazy smart. And they're all looking like who hired Kathy Bates Light, And I was so terrified, and it all seemed so bizarre and weird and quick, and they wanted an answer. They were like, so what do you think? And I was just like, I didn't know whether I almost thought that it was like a con. They were going to come out and go, this is what would you do with John whatever, and that show wasn't on back in the day, but it really felt like somehow weird and not right. And I said, I'm not really a writer. And they were like, well, you wrote all the stuff we saw, right? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, you'll figure out the rest. And I realized, that was a big realization for me. And I've met many people in these many years that do not consider themselves a writer. And then you go, well, have you written it? Well, yeah, I write my own stuff, or I write this, or I write my journals, or I write, a blog or whatever it is, and they won't call themselves a writer. So I realized once I got there that it's sort of half and half there. So I had 5 days to leave and move to New York City, was packing, crying, so terrified. And my mom finally was just like, Paula, this is an adventure, just go. And I wasn't young. I'm 53 and I was 31, I wasn't like some people come there when they're 23, and I just went and lived in a hotel for a month, and I was very lucky because everyone was new. So it was like going away to college. So it was like the year that Will Ferrell came and Sherry O'Terry and all them. And they were all such amazingly fun, wonderful, warm people that it felt, sometimes I've looked over the years at people that are new there and they're the only new person. And I'm like, I would have never made it.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about what those characters were that got you noticed?
The earlier ones I did cheerleaders, and I did Debbie Downer. I did Gilly, Susie Orman, Tony Bennett Show. I did the Bring It On Down to Omeleteville. With dreamy Justin Timberlake. I did a character that I did in Orlando that ended up being Bobby and Marty, but they already had come up with it.
Wow. Yeah. It's really inspiring that all of you decided to attend this mandatory drug awareness assembly. I'm Mr. Marty Culp.
And I'm Ms. Bobby Mohan Culp. And of course, we do head up the music department here at Altadena Middle School.
Today, you've heard a lot about how damaging drugs can be, and boy, do we know it.
Sure.
Bobby and I once faced the terrors of tripping on pot.
It was no day at the beach. Lesson learned. Tough stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
They told me what they were going to do, and it freaked me out because it was exactly what it was, and they just knew it. Anna and Will actually thought of it from Anna's music teacher. And so I guess a lot of people had that kind of music teacher, but I came out as a choir director in this thing, and I did a Led Zeppelin song as the choir director. So I was like, hey, mama, say the way you move, say the da-da-da. And I was directing the kids on how to do the Led Zeppelin song. And so they ended up doing that exact thing, but it wasn't from me,
Right.
So in the spirit of drug awareness, let's respect our bodies,
Protect our futures, and roll up a fatty full of fellowship and funk. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I wanna do a drug, one that won't make me sick,
or get suspended.
one that won't make me crash my car, or make me feel 3 feet thick.
Black old sun, won't you come?
Wash away the rain.
Black old sun, won't you come? Won't you come?
everything came. I mean, I tried out for cheerleading every single freaking year of my life. I practiced all summer. I got my back handspring. But I was the chubbiest girl in school, and I never, ever got cheerleading, ever. So I would be the one with all my best friends that were all cheerleaders, and I would be in the stands holding their purses and like Ziploc bag full of snacks in case their blood sugar goes down. I'm like, I knew every word to everything. So when we did cheerleaders, which were nerdy people that never made cheerleading, and so they cheered at like the chess tournament and the swim tournaments. Joyful losers is what I like to write. Joyful losers, because I was a joyful.
So you want a victory? Well, that makes you a wisher. 'Cause one thing that is for sure, you ain't no Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know. Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know. Go ask your mama and make sure you listen. 'Cause one thing is for sure, Bobby Fischer's missing. Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know. Bobby Fischer. Where is he? I don't know.
Here, check this out. Happy birthday to me. My party was amazing. I got what I asked for. I am now a sponsor of a child in Ecuador. I was the designated driver because I could tell no one else wanted to be. My favorite birthday gift was knowing everyone got home safe.
Last night was so fun, I can't even talk about it. There are no period words, period. Man, I couldn't even talk about it.
I took my deaf friend to the Sheila E. concert so she could really feel the music. She was so grateful. I didn't smoke pot because I was afraid there wasn't enough for everyone. Oh, come on.
I miss those glory days.
Oh, well, clearly we had different experiences. Oh, here's a play-by-play of the Jerry Lewis telethon.
Here's a chart of all the penises I ever saw.
Oh, good. Here's a quote from Helen Keller.
Here's really incorrect information about how to put an IUD in.
Here's a list of my houseplants.
Put in my butt.
Yeah.
I had this journal. This is my actual journal from when I was 13. And some of the entries that they read in that bathtub in Sisters are from my actual journal. I I stayed up all night every year for the Jerry Lewis telethon. I was like, I've stayed up for 37 hours. I used the word shall a lot in my journal. So I kept carrying this around for years. I mean, like 10 to 15 years after I got to SNL. And I kept carrying it around to meetings and stuff and being like, I want to do something with this. Maybe a one-woman show, maybe, just a little thing off Broadway where I could just sit and read it, different things. And now they have shows where you can read your journals. And the other thing was that in the front cover, it's almost turning to dust because I'm so old, but it's all Rocky. And I was obsessed with the first Rocky movie to the point where my friends and I went like 15 times to the theater, which that you only went to the theater. There were no order a movie. And we would tape record ourselves watching it. And I still can't find those tapes, but it would just be our little Midwestern voices like, oh my God, he's so cute. Oh my God, his lips. Oh my God. So I had this journal, and my agent, I had gone to a meeting, just a general meeting at my agent's with like some of the other agents just to come in and kind of meet the LA side of things because I was trying to come up with movie ideas. And so every time I talked about this, I would get excited. They would laugh. And the way I described it was my sister's journal. My sister's journal, she was a tall 70s fox. She was gorgeous. She had a flat stomach. She had long legs. She wore bell-bottoms and low-hanging jeans with big belts and fringy purses. And she was really shy, and the boys went crazy for her. And I looked like a Polish farm wife that was like born at 55. And so her journal was, it was just always hot and heavy. It was always like little codes of like, we made out, we did blah, 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 blah. But I didn't resent it at all. And my journal was like, I changed the grid on my rock tumbler today. And the amethyst is really looking good. It's really shining up, and I'm gonna make a hat pin out of it. And then I'm gonna eat a whole pizza and masturbate and cry and fall asleep on my face. So I'll just give you a couple little quick quotes.
Oh, please.
My writing is very neat. It was very neat. Everything is like so stained and so old looking. It looks like that Tom Hanks movie about the Bible. What is
Da Vinci Code.
Da Vinci Code. This looks like it's from the Da Vinci Code. Hi. This is, it's 1977, February 19th. Hi! Exclamation point. Always a lot of exclamation points. This is sort of a diary, but I won't write every day. I think I'll just write when I have something on my mind that should go on paper. I was very verbose even then. This is a kind of intro to my writing. First, a description of myself. I'm 13, have bluish-greenish eyes, and I have a heavy build, unfortunately. In May, I'll be getting my braces off. I'm very outgoing, and I have a very strong sense of humor. Now about my friends. And then I kind of diss my friends. I'm like saying really passive-aggressive things about them. Ellen's really sweet, but sometimes she's a little two-faced. I'll just give you March 18th, 1977. Well, I have a new love. Compared to Terry, who was a guy I had a crush on, he is an absolute, positively complete, super fantastic fox. His name is Sylvester Stallone. Also known as Sly. He is the star of all stars in the movie Rocky, which is an excellent flick. Laura Berkey is sleeping over, and I think we're having fun. So the point being, get to the point, Paula, in the morning, never. The point being that I had this journal. I kept getting excited about it. So every time I sat in a room with people, I'd go, I have this thing, and I'd tell them about it. I'd tell them all the other stuff with like very little excitement. Then I'd tell them about this, and they'd be like, oh my God, and they'd love the whole idea of it. And I walked out of that meeting that day, and my agent just looked at me and she goes, that's your movie right there, are these two sisters. And it just hadn't really occurred to me to put that together. And sometimes you just need that outside person to go, you know, and I mean, I really fought to keep some of when I first wrote it, I don't mean this as like, it was better when I first wrote it, or like it was more, but I did write more of a small movie when I wrote it. It was more emotional. It was more about what home is and all that. And then as a movie gets bigger and it becomes a big studio movie and they want trailer moments and they want it to be a very marketable, across-the-board, big, splashy movie, you start feeling that fear that you're going to lose special little moments in it. And I still look back on it, and you know, there's always stuff that I go, oh, I wish I would have kept that scene. But at some point, it's about length. It's about keeping the big, funny scene as opposed to the quiet scene. But there are little moments in that movie that I'm still glad, like up in the attic, or, you know, Diane Wiest by the sink. Just things that feel like my parents and my family.
When the girls were little, I used to wash their hair with this sprayer.
Well, I could put this one in the condo, if you like.
Yeah. I'll remember it.
There?
I was Pete Hornberger's wife on 30 Rock, and I just had terrible sex. Like every single scene they came up with, they'd be like, he's going to be having sex with you in your sleep and your apnea snoring.
I made love to my wife, and she was still asleep, so I didn't have to be gentle.
That's one of the most upsetting things I have ever imagined.
Are you sure? Think about it again.
Yes.
But then I also ended up writing for 30 Rock for a year. When I came back from LA after that failed sitcom, I wrote for 30 Rock for a year, which was an amazing experience. I made so many friends and I learned so much about series television, but the schedule of it, and I wasn't living in the city anymore, and it just became too hard for me to maintain with my life. So I ended up leaving after a year, but it was fantastic fun. And so, yeah, they would come up with stuff, but then once I was writing there, you know, I'd hear someone bring up, well, why doesn't Pete's wife do it? And I'm like, oh, here we go, you know. And it's weird when you're in the room and you're breaking stories and one of them is your character. It's very strange. One thing that ended up in a 30 Rock script was I used to always use the phrase backdoor brag. And And I think Harris Whittles, bless his soul, that passed away, great writer, he did a humble brag thing on Twitter. And years ago, I used to always talk about, like, because people would go, oh my God, does my nose look weird in this photo? And then it would be like the cover of something. You're like, oh, you mean the cover of Glamour where you look really hot? Yeah, your nose looks, no, it looks good. It's like, oh my God, I have to go to Lauren's tonight. Oh, I gotta go to dinner with Mark. So anytime people do that exhausted thing just to get information to you, I would call it a backdoor brag.
Connie's right. I'll never finish this application in time. Personal essay is way harder than I thought, because it's just not in my nature to brag on myself.
Not even a backdoor brag?
What's a backdoor brag?
Sneaking something wonderful about yourself into everyday conversation. Like when I tell people, it's hard for me to watch American Idol because I have perfect pitch.
Oh. Ew.
Now you try.
It's hard for me to watch American Idol, because there's a water bug on my channel changer. It's no use.
The other thing that I pitched at 30 Rock that I think Tina did in an episode was I always have thought that I was getting a surprise party, and I never did. So every birthday, like, it would always be suspicious. Everyone's behavior was suspicious. So I'd be like with my parents, and they're like, we're not going to be able to stay out late because, oh no? Oh, you have to have an early dinner at 4:30? Okay. And I'd go get like a blowout, and I'd be like, oh my God, I wonder who's going to be there and everything. And then as the night went on, it would just get more and more grim, where it was like, wow, I'm gathering my dignity. I'm like, not going to happen. Just going to swallow it. Just going to accept it. And they did that as like a little B story, I think, on the show.
This is the worst day of my life.
Of your life. Of your life.
Oh, God. How are we going to make this about you?
It's my birthday, Jack. It is my 40th birthday, and no one remembered.
Damn you, she-beasts!
What?
You and Avery, you lay these traps for me to fail. I'm sorry I forgot your birthday, Lemon. It's not my best day. I'm not myself right now, but please accept this $1,000 as my gift to you.
I will take this on principle, but it doesn't fix anything.
I am gay myself, and I think that has been something at SNL. You know, James Anderson and I, now that I called him a Kentucky gay, he doesn't give a shit. We did shows about it, but he and I, you know, were the only gay people in the writing staff for a long time. And in the early days, we would write things that were gay themed, and there in my era there now. I'm not speaking for before my era, because that whole era of comedy, not just at SNL but everywhere, you watch stuff and you're like, oh, I can't believe they would do that on a sitcom. You know, back in the day with anything, with weight, with gay, with race, anything where you just go, oh God, so inappropriate. And so at SNL, there would actually be things that we would do where he had an idea for this medicine called Homosil. I don't know if you've ever seen that commercial. And it's basically Will looking out a rainy window, and it's about, do you have anxiety? Do you feel like something's wrong? You know, and then you see his little son, and he's doing baton routine, and he's like, I just did a double Susie, Dad. And Will's like,
you suffer from inexplicable anxiety? Are you confused and upset? Do you have an overwhelming feeling that you've done something wrong?
Hi, Dad. This is called a double Susie.
You can't control whether he is or isn't, but you can control how it affects you. Homosil can provide relief from parental anxiety disorder.
Everyone at the show was so worried that we were going to get this big gay backlash, and it's when I came out at SNL, because I was in a meeting, and I'm like, well, I'm gay, and I'm telling you, I can speak for every gay person that they're going to love it. And everyone was like, Jesus, really? Because no one knew I was gay. And so on a bigger picture, not just about being gay, anything that's diverse, you know, comedy did come from that total, you're right, white, straight man sausage fest. It came from stand-up. It came from all that world that was just very, you know, women were kind of the token women, you know, but then when you really look back, like Elaine May and Joan Rivers and all those ladies, those were the ladies that had to maintain their kick self, because in my era, you know, there were amazing, amazing women that just came in and just blew it away. Like Molly Shannon and all these people, they didn't care, and writers that came in and just blew it away. So I did learn at that show that funny rises to the top. It does not matter who you are.
You've been watching A Conversation with Paula Pell on OnStory. OnStory is part of a growing number of programs in Austin Film Festival's OnStory project, including the OnStory PBS series, now streaming online, the OnStory radio program and podcast in collaboration with Public Radio International, and the OnStory book series available on Amazon. To find out more about OnStory and Austin Film Festival, visit onstory.tv or austinfilmfestival.com.